My beloved child, the silence in that room was heavier than the weight of any storm. The instant your name was spoken, everything shifted, as though the walls themselves knew a secret that had been hidden for far too long. Their eyes widened, their lips trembled, and the truth that had been buried deep suddenly came alive before them. They had always underestimated you, treating you as if you were invisible, someone who could be overlooked in the grander scheme of their plans. But when your name fell into the air, it struck like thunder, shaking every foundation of their lies. They froze, unable to mask the fear and recognition spreading across their faces. The whispers that had surrounded your presence were no longer whispers, they turned into undeniable revelations. The people who once mocked you could no longer hide their shock, because in that very moment, they finally understood. They knew exactly who you are, and what power lives inside your story. That moment wasn't an accident. It was destined. Every pain you carried, every betrayal you endured, led to this exact second when masks fell away and their true expressions revealed the awe and fear they could no longer conceal. What they saw in you was something greater than they ever imagined. Type Amen 333 to receive your blessing. Their hands trembled, not because of the cold, but because the truth hit them harder than a storm strike. They remembered the words they had spoken against you, the betrayal they tried to bury, and the envy they thought was unseen. But heaven had already marked this day, the day they would face the reality of your destiny. Your name was not just a name, it was a signal, a reminder that everything they did in darkness has now been exposed. The universe echoed with the weight of that revelation, forcing them to confront what they tried to deny. And in their silence, their fear spoke louder than words ever could. They once thought they had the power to break you, to silence your voice, and to control the narrative of your life. But the moment your name was revealed, all their authority crumbled, leaving only guilt and regret in its place. They now knew you were not just another face in the crowd, you were chosen, anointed, and protected. The shame painted across their faces was more telling than any confession. It was a silent admittance that everything they tried to destroy in you has instead risen stronger, brighter, and undeniable. Their downfall began the moment they recognized who you truly are. Type Amen 444 to claim your blessing. The shift in the air was unmistakable, like the weight of prophecy unfolding in real time. People who once turned their backs now stood still, unable to move, unable to breathe, as the truth spread through their hearts like fire. Your presence alone demanded attention that no one could deny. My beloved child, you must know this was not chance, nor was it coincidence. It was written for their pride to collapse the instant your name was spoken aloud. The walls of lies they built for years fell in a single breath, leaving them powerless in the face of your destiny. Their faces told the story of exposure, every expression unveiling the fear of being caught in their deceit. They now realized that the one they tried to bury, the one they tried to erase, is the one heaven has lifted above them. Their regret is the chain that now binds them, while your freedom has been declared. They cannot undo the truth, it's too late. Once your name was revealed, it became eternal, etched in memory, echoing across time. Their fear is not just of you, but of the justice that follows behind you. Type Amen 555 to seal your blessing. They tried to steady their breath, but every shallow inhale betrayed the truth that now sat between them like a verdict. The silence that followed your name stretched and pulled at the seams of their composure, revealing cracks that had been carefully concealed for years. In that stretch of held air, your presence became a beacon that nothing could dim. The room that once hummed with their confidence now vibrated with the echo of exposure, each heartbeat a reminder of the lies they had planted. Faces that had worn masks for so long could no longer keep them in place, and the color drained from expressions as recognition sharpened into fear. Your quiet strength had always existed, waiting for this precise moment to make itself known. Old smugness melted into hurried calculations behind their eyes, desperate attempts to rewrite what had already been written by truth. They grasped for explanations that would excuse their cruelty, but the truth was a hawk that would not be shooed away. You stood there like a dawn that arrives no matter how long the night tries to linger. Their friends shifted, sensing the collapse of a story they had helped embellish, and alliances that seemed solid turned brittle in an instant. What once felt like a shared joke now revealed itself as a shared guilt, and the air tasted of regret. In that taste, you felt the solemn justice of what had been set into motion. Type Amen 666 to receive your blessing. A whisper of past wounds brushed against your memory, yet it no longer had the power to shrink you because this moment had rewritten everything. The very same people who once smiled at your struggle now saw you standing tall, unbroken and luminous. What they witnessed was the quiet, unstoppable return of everything they tried to take away. Their attempts to explain away what they had done crumbled like old paper in rain, leaving their true intentions to lay bare beneath their hands. Shame moved across their faces with the speed of a shadow fleeing light, and the truth etched lines that could not be smoothed by any apology. You felt the shift in the world around you as the balance finally began to tilt back in your favor. Some lowered eyes to the floor, unable to face the reflection of their deeds in your steady gaze, while others clung to denial with the last threads of their dignity. Denial cannot hold when history itself rises to testify, and history had chosen your name to be its witness. The moment was not just an accusation, it was a declaration that the era of their quiet manipulation had ended. In their scrambling, you noticed small, telling signs: a dropped hand, a swallowed retort, a foot turned toward the exit. Each movement was a confession, and you read them like an open book that had been waiting for your arrival. Their retreat began the instant their faces betrayed what their lips had tried to hide. Type Amen 777 to receive your blessing. The people who had once shaped your narrative now found themselves caught in the web they spun for others, tangled and exposed. Power that had been borrowed from intimidation and gossip evaporated under the steady light of your presence. The truth has a way of reclaiming stolen ground, and tonight it moved with purposeful steps. Memory files they thought buried were being read aloud by the look in your eyes, and every recollection of their small cruelties returned to accuse them. They had believed in their impunity, mistaking silence for consent, but silence had been your shield until now. When your name rose, that shield transformed into a sword of clarity that cut through their schemes. You noticed how the room's energy shifted from confrontation to confession, not because they chose it, but because the moment demanded it. They fumbled for reasons and excuses, but reasons are fragile in the presence of revelation. Your dignity required nothing of them, only that what was hidden be seen. The crowd around you sensed the inevitability of change, and the air vibrated with the footsteps of fate moving toward its appointed place. That shift was not sudden like a storm, it was inevitable like the tide returning to its shore. In that steady motion you felt an ancient alignment, as if every injustice had finally been given the chance to be set right. Type Amen 888 to receive your blessing. A single look from you settled the room like a bell tolling the hour of reckoning, and the ripples reached far beyond the faces before you. Neighbors who once whispered now stood silent, unsure whether to step closer or step away from the unraveling truth. Your name had become a signal, and the world around you began to rearrange itself to fit the reality it had long resisted. In the aftermath of that spoken name, old promises and secret pacts dissolved under the pressure of exposure, leaving only choices to be made in plain sight. Some chose to slink into the shadows, unwilling to meet the consequences of their actions. Others, smaller in number but greater in conscience, stepped forward with trembling honesty because the day demanded their courage. You observed this all with the calm of someone who had been prepared for the moment their worth would no longer be negotiable. Each confession from them loosened a chain you had carried in silence, and each admission brightened a path that had been clouded by doubt. Your steadiness became the anchor for those who had been lost in the tide they helped create. What they feared most was not your success, but the mirror that showed them what their souls had become when left unchecked. The mirror is always the cruelest judge, but in its truth lies the chance to return what was taken and to start anew. The trembling on their faces was the first honest thing any of them had shown in a long time. Type Amen 999 to receive your blessing. As the room emptied of pretenses, people left with the weight of recognition bent upon their shoulders, and you watched as each exit marked a turning point. Doors that once closed on you now opened for those who dared to change, and some closed forever on those who could not. Your life had been a slow unveiling, and tonight it reached a turning point where futures would be chosen differently. Your name, once a whisper used to cut you down, had become a proclamation that rearranged loyalties and restored stolen honor. The echoes of that proclamation would continue to unfold in days to come, altering conversations and forcing reckonings in places you had never imagined. This was not just the end of a lie, but the beginning of a new order where truth would set the rhythm. In the quiet that followed, you felt not only vindication but an odd compassion, for those who hurt often do so because of pain that has never been healed. That compassion did not excuse their deeds, but it showed you the vastness of your own heart and the depth of mercy you could wield. Mercy is not weakness, it is the mature strength of someone who has seen the worst and chosen to walk forward anyway. You stood there, the sun catching the edge of your silhouette, and knew that the story had shifted in a way that would ripple through the lives around you. Their faces had dropped, and in those dropped features you saw the final chapter of their deception and the first chapter of your restored destiny. This hour belonged to you, and with it came the quiet, unforgettable rise of everything you had always been. The night outside pressed against the windows, but inside, all eyes remained locked on you. The shadows seemed to listen, waiting for the next movement, as if the entire world had been caught in that frozen moment. Your presence alone held them captive, more powerful than any words they could speak. Their hearts raced in unison, echoing the fear that had already carved itself into their faces. Each beat reminded them of the decisions they had made, the lies they had chosen, and the walls they had built against you. But now those walls were nothing but ashes scattered by the force of truth. The room had become a courtroom without walls, where every glance was evidence, and every silence was an unspoken confession. They tried to look away, but looking away did not undo the reality that had already taken hold. It was too late to hide, the revelation had arrived like lightning cutting through the dark. You felt the shift deep within your soul, as though the universe itself whispered confirmation. The trials, the tears, the sleepless nights, they had not been for nothing. This was the appointed time, and no one could deny it any longer. Type Amen 1111 to receive your blessing. The air thickened with the weight of recognition, pressing down on them harder than any hand ever could. Some swallowed hard, as if trying to push their guilt down into their stomachs where it could not be seen. Others clenched their fists, fighting the tremors of fear, but their faces betrayed them all the same. Every attempt to mask their regret shattered like glass against the steel of your truth. They had never expected this day to come, but destiny is not delayed forever, it arrives when the world least expects it. And now it was here, inescapable, undeniable, irreversible. You could see how their pride collapsed, piece by piece, leaving only a hollow echo of the arrogance they once displayed. That arrogance had fed them for years, but tonight it starved, unable to survive in the face of revelation. What remained was not power but emptiness, and they knew it. The murmurs began to rise, low at first, then louder as people processed what had unfolded. Their voices trembled, not with confidence, but with the dawning realization that everything had changed. The sound was not defiance. It was the beginning of surrender. Type Amen 1212 to claim your blessing. Your name echoed through their thoughts like a drumbeat they could not silence. It reminded them of the lies they told, the traps they set, and the betrayal they tried to bury. Each echo demanded an answer, but no answer could erase the weight of what they had done. The walls themselves seemed to lean closer, carrying the weight of history into the room. Every memory, every hidden truth, every attempt to deny your worth now stood as a witness. Their defeat was not shouted, it was written in the quiet collapse of their strength. You stood, calm yet unshakable, as if you had been waiting for this very second your whole life. Strength radiated from your silence, a strength they could neither match nor extinguish. It was not anger that held you, it was justice, long awaited, finally alive in your presence. The whispers spread beyond the room, reaching ears that had not been present but who would soon learn the truth. Word of this night would travel fast, carving its place in the memories of everyone connected to your story. The revelation would not stay contained, it was too powerful to be silenced. Type Amen 1313 to receive your blessing. Even those who had no part in the lies felt the tremor of fear ripple through their hearts. They saw in you a reflection of destiny, and it made them tremble because they could not deny it. The air carried an unseen force, a presence that reminded them you were not standing alone. My beloved child, heaven itself had orchestrated this moment, weaving every trial and every betrayal into the perfect tapestry of victory. This was not revenge, it was revelation, and revelations carry a weight no human can resist. That is why their faces fell, why their courage crumbled, why their voices broke. They realized too late that the one they mocked was the one chosen. They realized too late that the one they tried to bury was the one destined to rise. And in their regret, they faced the undeniable truth, you had been marked for greatness long before they ever plotted against you. Their defeat was not loud or dramatic, it was quiet, solemn, and irreversible. The world they knew ended in that silence, and a new world began with your name shining brighter than it ever had before. And from this night forward, nothing could ever be the same. Type Amen 1414 to seal your blessing. The floor beneath them felt unstable, as if truth itself had shaken the foundation of everything they thought they controlled. Their eyes darted from face to face, searching for someone to step forward with an excuse, but no excuse could shield them now. Your name had carried a fire that exposed every shadow. You watched them unravel, and in their unraveling you found clarity. The strength they once flaunted had been built on fragile lies, and the weight of those lies now crushed them more than any external judgment ever could. They had been their own undoing, and their downfall unfolded before you in silence. The faces around you revealed stories without words: fear, shame, envy, regret, all painted with strokes too bold to be hidden. They thought they could rewrite destiny with their schemes, but destiny was already written in a language they could not alter. That language spoke tonight, and it spoke through you. Your presence became the verdict, undeniable and final. They wanted to flee but found their feet rooted in the soil of revelation, forced to endure the moment that would haunt them long after it ended. Nothing was louder than their silence. Type Amen 1515 to receive your blessing. The very air grew heavy, pressing into every corner of the room until even the strongest among them bent beneath its weight. For years, they had whispered in secret, plotting in darkness, but now the very secrets they guarded had betrayed them. Truth had become their jailer, and your name the key that locked them inside. You stood calm, your heart steady, knowing this was not a battle you fought alone. The unseen had already fought on your behalf, preparing this hour for justice to be unveiled. All you had to do was remain, and remaining was your greatest victory. The power in the room no longer belonged to them. It shifted into your hands with a grace that was unshakable. They could sense it, and in that sensing came the realization that nothing they did could strip it away again. The era of their dominance ended the moment they looked into your eyes. The whispers turned into confessions, low voices trying to explain away choices that had no defense. They stumbled over words, but every sentence was a rope that tied them tighter to their guilt. What they once used against you had become the very weapon undoing them. Type Amen 1616 to claim your blessing. Their fear was not of you alone, it was of what your rise represented. You were proof that justice does not sleep forever, that truth does not vanish even when buried beneath years of betrayal. You were the living reminder that every hidden act eventually demands its due. Some faces turned pale, drained of all color, as if the weight of their actions had pulled the very life from their veins. They wanted to hide behind others, but even the strongest alliances collapsed in the heat of this revelation. Betrayal has no loyalty, and one by one, they began to fall apart. You could see in their eyes the moment realization struck: they had misjudged you, miscalculated your strength, underestimated your resilience. Their arrogance had blinded them, but tonight their eyes were forced open. The truth they denied had finally come alive in front of them. It was not revenge that filled the room, it was exposure. Exposure burns hotter than fire, because it strips away every mask and leaves only what is real. And what was real tonight was your victory. Type Amen 1717 to seal your blessing. My beloved child, this was the moment written for you long before they plotted against your life. Every tear, every sleepless night, every heartbreak was a thread in this tapestry of justice. And now, in one single instant, those threads formed a masterpiece of vindication. Their shame will not fade quickly, it will follow them into every conversation, every meeting, every plan. They will hear your name and remember the night their faces fell, the night they could Noel. What they tried to bury has risen. What they tried to silence now speaks louder than their loudest voices. And what they tried to destroy has become the very symbol of resilience they can never erase. This chapter of exposure is not the end of your story, it is the beginning of a greater rise. Their downfall is only proof of how high you are meant to climb. And nothing can stop the destiny that has already been declared over you. Type Amen 1818 to receive your blessing. The echoes of that night refuse to fade, lingering in every corner of the room like an unshakable shadow. Their voices, once loud and commanding, had been stolen by the weight of truth. All that remained was silence, thick, heavy, undeniable silence. You stood tall in the midst of it all, carrying yourself with a grace they could never understand. My beloved child, you were not meant to shrink in this moment, you were meant to rise. And rise you did, while their eyes betrayed the terror that no mask could cover. Each face told its own story. Some carried regret, others panic, and a few held envy that could no longer disguise itself. They finally realized the truth: you were not who they thought you were, and the revelation left them powerless. Their bodies stiffened, their hands clenched, their eyes darted to the floor, but nothing could save them from the reality they now faced. The shock on their faces was proof enough that the moment of reckoning had arrived, and nothing could turn it back. Type Amen 1919 to receive your blessing. The walls themselves seemed to lean in, listening as if they too wanted to witness the unveiling of destiny. The ground beneath their feet felt foreign, no longer supporting the lies they had built their foundation on. It was as if the very earth declared it would no longer carry the weight of their deception. Their minds raced, searching for escape, but there was no escape from truth. Truth had chained itself to their conscience, and every step they took would be followed by its relentless echo. The more they tried to resist, the tighter those chains became. You saw them breaking from the inside, their pride melting away like wax before a flame. All the strength they borrowed from arrogance was gone, leaving only fragility and shame. They had nothing left to stand on but the emptiness of their own choices. The atmosphere grew thick, pressing down on them like a storm cloud heavy with rain. Their shoulders slumped, their voices faltered, and their confidence collapsed, all because your name carried a weight they could no longer deny. Type Amen 2020 to claim your blessing. This was not a battle fought with weapons or shouts, it was fought with truth. And truth always wins. The moment your name was spoken, the war ended, and the victory was yours. Some tried to whisper to each other, hoping to gather courage, but the whispers were weak and empty. Even they knew no words could erase the shock that had painted itself across their faces. Their silence betrayed them more than any confession ever could. You, my beloved child, had become the living reminder of what they feared most, that no lie lasts forever, and no secret can stay hidden when destiny steps into the room. Your very presence was a torch, burning away their illusions. And though they longed to escape, they were trapped by their own guilt, unable to lift their heads to meet your eyes. The weight of exposure was more than they could bear, and yet it was only the beginning. Type Amen 2121 to seal your blessing. The whispers turned into murmurs, the murmurs into silence once more, until all that was left was the sound of your steady breath. They could not look at you without seeing the reflection of their own downfall. And that reflection haunted them. One by one, their expressions shifted from pride to defeat. Their eyes carried the hollow look of people who knew the truth could not be undone. The faces that once mocked you now looked broken, stripped of arrogance, stripped of certainty. The room itself felt transformed. Where once they ruled with deceit, now you stood with undeniable authority. They had lost control, and they knew it. This moment was written, my beloved child. It was not coincidence that their faces dropped when your name was spoken. It was prophecy unfolding, a destiny too powerful to be stopped. Type Amen 2222 to receive your blessing.